Unity.
Good morning.
And good morning to all of our friends joining us online. We hope you will get something from what is said today. I am, as introduced, Charles Frost. I've done many things in my life, some of which Bill knows nothing about, and that's probably good. I want to talk to you about God today. I am the Yay God guy. And I've been asked by some people, why Yay God? And it's really very simple. We're talking about embodied spirituality during this quarter. And I've been thinking about talking about God since back in the second quarter of the year, and when I saw the fourth quarter, Spirit said to me, yeah, that's when. Because it's a talk I think is important. You know, we spend in Unity and other New Thought, we spend a lot of time talking about Jesus as our elder brother, our way shore, our example. We talk about Spirit moving on us. What about God? God. God is something that's very personal with us, with each of us. And as I was preparing to do this talk, I ran across in my library a book that was buried a little deep, How to Know God by Deepak Chopra. And I'm going to do a blatant plug here. I'm going to be doing a spirit group after the first of the year on this book. So get a copy of the book and be ready to have some fun after the first of the year. But Deepak breaks God down into several categories. And I want to read this from his book. God, the protector, fits a world of bare survival, full of physical threats and danger. God, the Almighty, fits a world of power struggles and ambition where fierce competition rules. A God of peace fits a world of inner solitude where reflection and contemplation is possible. God, the Redeemer, fits a world where personal growth is encouraged and insights prove fruitful. God, the Creator, fits a world that is constantly renewing itself, where innovation and discovery are valued. A God of miracles fits a world that contains prophets and seers, where spiritual vision is nurtured. A God of pure being, I am, fits a world that transcends all boundaries, a world of infinite possibilities. Anybody who wants to read this book with me after the first of the year will be doing that. Deepak broke God down into a lot of different things. God, though, and maybe it's one of the reasons that God isn't talked about so much, is God for each of us is a personal relationship. Each of us has our own image of God. During the dozen years that I was on the road doing workshops and seminars all over the country, driving by car, I got to see all the lower 48 contiguous states and Alaska. I didn't drive there, I flew there 3 different times, never got to Hawaii, so I'm missing 1 state out of 50. So what? God was always there, every time, everywhere that I went. You might say God set me up. I was perfectly happy, albeit wondering about conventional religion. I was born and raised in Episcopal, and for those of you who don't know, Episcopalianism is Catholic light. It's everything but the Pope. And I was brought up in the Episcopal religion, and into my, although I had questions, into my 40s and even after my divorce, I was still in the Episcopal Church. And Father Petranek at the church I was going to in Dallas called me the resident Gnostic. I questioned everything. And as time went on, I got exposed to unity. And I started doing early service at the Episcopal Church, and then a 10:30 service at the Unity Church in Irving, Texas. And that went on for about 6 months until all of a sudden I got pneumonia, and I was very sick. I was on the attendance committee at the Episcopal Church, didn't hear anything. The people at the Unity Church, what do you need? What can we get for you? And they were on me like a blanket, which was very nice because I needed a lot of help. I found that's kind of the Unity way. And I started just going to Unity. And actually I went to, after I started on the road, I went to the Episcopal Church one last time, and it was the Christmas Eve service. I'd gone to the Unity service, which was early in the evening, and I was going to midnight mass, which started at 11 with songs and caroling and everything. And at midnight, Father Petranek gets up, and he starts to deliver his homily, his talk for the day, and he talks about Jesus coming to save us from ourselves. And I thought about that for a second, and I got up and I walked out in the middle of the talk. I'd already been exposed to a lot of various religion over the years. Face it, here we are in Western Michigan. I was born and raised here in Grand Rapids. I had that 22-year intermission in the Texas market, and then ended up back here. And here we have two very dominant religion. We have the Dutch Christian Reformed, who actually, how they practice their religion is 100 to 200 years behind how it's practiced in Holland, in the Netherlands. And then we have the Polish Catholics. It's Pulaski Days this weekend, for any of you who don't know. And both of them are very dominant and have some very set beliefs, and I had friends in both camps and still do. And then I went to Texas. And I got exposed to Southern Baptist evangelical religion. Now, those of you like Bill Bussey who were in the South or brought up in the South know what I'm talking about. It's something totally different. And the best example that I can give you of this is my dear friend that I met when I was in the South. It's the Right Reverend Billy Bob Ed Charles. Everybody has two first names in Texas. And the Right Reverend Billy Bob Ed Charles might say something like this to you. Friends, you need Jesus. Only a Southern Baptist can make Jesus into 3 syllables. You need Jesus in your life. Because you see, friends, you have sin in your life, and you're being tempted by the devil in your own innate evil nature, and you need Jesus to save you. Funny, I didn't think that way. Never did. See, I have a relationship with God. There's a reason I say, yay, God. I was on the road for 12 years. It's interesting how I got there. God always has plans. We don't know what the plans are, when they're going to play out, but God has them. And I moved to Texas with my then wife, who became my ex-wife, half dozen years into our time in Texas. And from the big D, divorce, I went into the big T, which is therapy. And the type of therapy I got involved in was neurolinguistic programming, which for those of you who don't know anything about neurolinguistics, basically said neurolinguistics is the study of language effect on the nervous system. And everything that you say reflects what you believe. And there's a number of other things, but that's the simplest way to explain neurolinguistics. So I got so fascinated by neurolinguistics, I took the course 9 months, every other weekend, workshops in between, groups in between, and became a certified neurolinguistic practitioner. And the week after I did that, I was exposed to the Unity Church for the first time. And I walked in, and it was warm, and it was friendly, and I was listening to what was being said, and I said, you know, these people sort of kind of think like I do. They might still be a little on the conservative side, but I can forgive them that. And that was the start of me in Unity. So I go along, and the minister got divorced, and he married his third wife, and they went on their honeymoon, and he asked me to guest speak. I wasn't there to do any talks or anything, but he said, no, you're supposed to guest speak. You're a good speaker. I want you to guest speak. So I guest spoke. I almost threw up before that first service. If it wasn't for the woman I was dating at the time just rubbing my back and saying, it's okay, Charles, you can do this. And God said, more. What? More. And I was asked to teach a class. I was doing some counseling for a couple of people who were change resistant, and they started to change. And the minister said, I was doing that in private, and I was asked to do a class, and the people in the class, including the licensed teachers, started to change. The minister said, well, you do it in the church. And I'm going, I didn't do this for any reason but to help myself. God said, do it. Okay. Then I get an invitation from the Unity minister at Pasadena, outside of Houston, Texas, to come and be one of the speakers at a workshop seminar that he's doing on a weekend in February on Galveston Island. And all the other speakers were ministers. 2 Unity ministers, 1 divine science minister. And I'm looking at that and I'm saying, I don't belong there. I'm out of my league. And the voice says to me, Charles, you know, that's in mid-February, and it can be 30 degrees in Dallas and 70 on Galveston Island. So I went ahead and I said yes. Sure enough, it was 30 in Dallas and 70 on Galveston Island that weekend. And all 3 of the ministers asked me to come to their churches and do workshops. And several of the people who were there were presidents of boards without a minister. Will you come and guest speak at our church? And I'm going, what's going on here? And God said, do it. Well, okay. The thing is, though, I want you to know about what God's saying. God, you can say God was telling you. No, God was asking me. God will never tell you what to do. And the reason God never tells you what to do is God's greatest gift to you, and that is called free will. And that's something that gets lost in so much religion, is this free will. We're supposed to do things a certain way. No, God asks us. God never tells us. God asks us to do things. Things develop further, and all of a sudden, I'm up here in 1989. I've been doing guest speaking throughout Texas and southern Oklahoma. And I come up here for a couple of weeks to see my father, who was supposed to be dying. That's a long story. Some of you have heard me talk about my father. I did a talk on my dad years ago. And he came up, and I scheduled workshops at Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, and Lansing, Unity Churches. And all three ministers wrote me letters of reference. And I get back, I'm happy as a clam. I'm back down in Dallas, actually Irving, Texas. I'm back down in Irving, and the voice says to me, now you're supposed to go on the road. And I said, say what? What do you mean I'm supposed to go on the road? People need to hear this message. But I didn't do this for that reason. This is what I ask of you. But do you trust me? That was always, do you trust me? When I'd have questions, it was, do you trust me? Not some drawn-out reason or principle based on Jesus or anything else. It was, do you trust me? Do we trust God? And I might try and give an excuse, and the voice didn't answer the excuse. It just said, do you trust me? Yes. Then this is what I ask of you. It went on for a dozen years. And then it ended 2 years after my book got published. And it took me 2 years to go around the nation, one time around the nation promoting the book. And in 2001, my car blew its engine. And I spent a year as the sales manager for a Rainbow vacuum cleaner distributor in Denton, Texas. He didn't want one of his salespeople. He wanted a sales professional, and he and I came to an agreement. I spent a year there, and I went back out. And in 2002, I'd worked my way back up to Michigan. I was doing workshops again, and I got sick. And actually, I got very sick. Do you know that my pacing around, I used to do this, but it's the first time in years I've done this because I got to the point where I had to sit. But after I got sick 2.5 years ago, I came back out of that again with therapy, and I came back stronger than ever. God leads us. God puts us where we're supposed to be, if we realize it or not. God is always there. I want to go back even further. When I was 23 years old, I was in an automobile accident. I was on my way to Ypsilanti to help a friend of many years move furniture from Ypsilanti to Grand Rapids and more furniture back to Ypsilanti. He was getting married the following weekend, and I was supposed to be a groomsman in his wedding. And just outside of Ionia, I blew a tire, and the car flipped and rolled. And I ended up in the median, pointed in the right direction, on my hands and knees in the front seat. I was taken to Ionia Hospital. They ran 2 sets of x-rays, determined they'd already talked to Blodgett Hospital here in Grand Rapids, and had been told if it was safe to move me, it was preferable for me to be here in Grand Rapids. My parents were here, and so, yeah, it's okay, we'll move him. So they moved me here to Grand Rapids, and they take another set of x-rays, and the technicians say, it's fine. And the doctor, who happened to be a personal friend of my parents, said, no, it's there, run it again. The 4th time they did x-rays, they found a break at the first odontoid of my neck, a clean break. Everything from the third vertebrae up rests directly on the central nervous cord, and when it's broken, it's either perilous or death time. What fooled them all was I had full mobility in all my limbs. So I then spent 10 weeks in traction. And I spent a year and a half in various types of braces. That's beside the point. What happened then, though, is very interesting, because it's when I became very aware of the presence of God in my life. For 10 days, I was in a concussion state. Now, a concussion state is very much like a coma state, except for you can talk to people and everything. If Bill Bussey and I had known each other, then Bill could come into the room, talk to me, leave my line of sight, and come back and we'd talk about the same thing again, because I had no memory of Bill being there. Where I was, in a cloud, a pure white, snowy cloud. No gray, no black, nothing, just white. And within that cloud, there were bright lights. It's the only way I can describe them. There were bright lights. And the lights talked to me. Only they didn't talk, it was all thought. And I'd try and answer them by talking to them, don't talk, think it. And I was there, and they taught me so much, some of which I've remembered and used, some of which every now and then, oh yeah. But that was the presence of God. God as I understand God. A being of light and wonder and understanding. That's how God is to me. So yeah, God is very personal to me, for each and every one of us. God is there and will raise you up. Yay, God.